So we'll start in a seated position, either on the ground or on your chair. And if you are sitting on the ground, I always suggest sitting on some sort of elevation just so that your back can be a bit more comfortable. You can use a block, you can use a pillow. I've just got a folded blanket here that I'm going to sit on. And we will use at least one block today. So if you have one, you can grab it. If you're at home and you don't have one, you can always use something like a bigger book that you can stand on. So making yourself comfortable as you can in a seat. Rest your hands on your legs. Soften your shoulders. And you can lower your gaze or close your eyes. And take a few deeper breaths. Beginning to arrive right here in this moment in your own body. Take a little bit of time to just bring your attention inwards and notice how you feel today. And do your best to simply notice without any kind of judgment or commentary. And now bring that same observing attention to your breath. And just tune into the rhythm of your breath. And you might notice where it is that you feel your breath the most prominently in your body. And it might be at your nostrils, it might be at your chest or belly. It doesn't really matter. Just notice what's going on for you today. And then if you wish, you can bring your hands to your chest and tune in a little bit more to any movement that you sense at your chest with your inhales and exhales. And then bring your hands down to your belly. And the same thing. Can you sense any movement here? And for the next few breaths, try to draw your inhales right down to your low belly. Just imagining you can breathe all the way down to your belly and allowing your exhales to be long and smooth. And then we'll let this go. Just rest your hands wherever they're comfortable. And staying in touch with your breath, let's lift our arms with the next inhale. Bring your hands together. And as you exhale, trace your hands down the center line of your body. Let's do that a couple times. And you can keep following the rhythm of your breath, or you can take your own pace. And the next time you bring your arms up, we'll keep them up. And then as you exhale, send your right arm back and your left forward. And inhale to come back to center. And exhale, go the other way. And same thing here. Keep flowing with your breath or pick your own pace. And we'll let this one go. The next time you come back up to center, just let your arms come out to the sides and down. Give them a nice shake. Awesome. Okay, rest your hands. Let's just do some simple shoulder rolls up and back. And the other way a few times. And soften. Just let them be still. Take another breath here. And now we'll try some seated cat and cow moves. So as you inhale, arch your back, lift your chest, maybe lift your gaze as well. And as you exhale, round through your spine, bring your chin closer to your chest, and keep going a few more times. And then come on back to your neutral. And we're going to do that again, but this time bring your hands to rest on your low back. Kind of looking for the bones of your pelvis here. And we're going to do our cat and cow, but this time try to keep your pelvis fairly neutral. So your hands can give you a bit of feedback with that. So roll your shoulders up and back. Open your chest, look up just a touch. And then round through your spine. Let your shoulders come forward as you do. And just keep going back and forth a couple times. See if you can allow your pelvis to stay fairly neutral. Maybe notice what's happening in your upper body when you do this, if some different muscles are coming online to help you. And come on back to neutral. Nice. Take your arms out. Maybe give your spine a bit of movement. Okay, come on back to stillness when you're ready. And let's give our spine a little bit more movement. So tune into your breath. On your inhale, bring your arms back up. Exhale, bring your right hand down to touch the ground or hold the side of your chair. If your hands don't touch the ground on their own, grab a prop so you can have a connection to the ground. Nice. And when you've got that set up, bring your attention to your spine. See if you can lengthen through your spine a little bit, get a tiny bit taller. And let's side bend. Reaching over to the side, but keep both sides of your seat connected to the ground. So if you find yourself lifting off the ground, then settle back down. And then come on back up to center. You move that prop over to the other side if you've used it. Let's get the other hand down, holding the side of your chair or the ground or your prop. Lengthen through your spine and let's go the other way. Nice, breathe easy here. Come all the way back up. Maybe reach your arms up between sides. If you want, you can interlace your fingers, flip your palms around and reach up. And let it go. Nice. All right. Rest your hands, soften your shoulders. Just take an easy breath. All right. Let's do some rotation in our arms. So start by bringing one arm out to the side and bring the other hand to rest on the front of your shoulder. Now what we're going to do is rotate this arm just like this. And think about rotating from your upper arm bone. So it's not your forearm, which has tons and tons of movement. It's the upper arm driving the movement. And with the other hand, you can notice if your whole shoulder wants to move, just back off of the rotation a bit so it can be just arm bone moving in your shoulder socket. And let this one go. We'll switch sides when you're ready. Same thing here. You might notice a difference from shoulder to shoulder and how much movement is available. And that's fine, expected. All right, let this one go as well. Nice. All right, take a breath here. And just tune in again. Notice how you feel. Notice how your breath feels as well. Okay, let's try one more move while we're sitting. So we're going to do a seated twist, and we'll start with just a tiny twist, and then we'll do a little bit of a bigger twist. So to start off with, just bring your hands to the sides of your ribs or the sides of your waist, wherever you can easily touch. Add a bit of length to your spine again, feeling as if you could lift the crown of your head up a little bit. And now just turn your ribs to one side. Nice. Come on back to center. Go the other way. And this time think about your rib cage driving the movement. Just focusing on those ribs. You don't really need to crank your head around to make the twist a bit bigger. Just get curious about how much twisty movement you have available. And let's let it go, shake it out. Awesome. All right, so we're gonna do our setup for our bigger twist. If you're sitting on the ground, we're gonna switch to sitting like this, so their legs straight out. So if you're sitting on something really high, like a block or a book, then you might wanna switch to something softer, like a blanket, or even flat on the ground if that's okay for you. And if you're in your chair, we're gonna use one of our blocks. So I'm gonna kind of hop back and forth a few times to show you where we're going with this twist. But first, if you're in your chair, if you've got a block, you can bring your right foot up onto the block like this. Awesome. If you're sitting on the ground, you can, imagine my legs are on the ground, just bend your right knee and place your foot on the floor. Awesome. Lovely. Okay. Now bring your right hand down to hold the side of your chair or touch the ground. And same thing. So same hand as leg is on the ground. I'm saying right and doing left because I'm trying to be your mirror today. All right. So same thing here. If you can't touch the ground, bring a prop under your hand so you have a nice connection to the ground. And from here, add some length to your spine. Maybe picture from your belly button extending down and up at the same time. Lovely. Keep that nice sense of alertness in your spine and lift the other arm up. Awesome. Take a nice inhale here. And as you exhale, turn your ribs to come into the twist. And then you can bring your arm down to rest on the bent knee. Awesome. Let's take a breath or two here. And when you're ready, you can unravel, come back to center. And let's bring our legs back to a more neutral place, maybe give them a little bit of a shake out. All right, let's set up for the other side. So if you're on your chair, you can move the block under your other foot. If you're on the ground, just bend the other knee, bring your foot to the floor. Awesome. Same hand as bent knee down on the side of your chair or the ground or ground and prop, whatever works for you. Lovely. Tune into your breath. Lengthen through your spine. As you inhale, float the other arm up. And bring your attention to your rib cage to turn into your twist. Bring your arm down to rest on your leg when you're ready. Nice. Let's stay here for a couple of breaths. See if you can still feel as if you could breathe down to your belly, even when you're all twisted up here. And then with your next inhale, unravel, come back to center, take a nice full breath, a little bit freer when we're not in our twist. Awesome. Stretch your legs out, shake them out. All right, and we're going to switch it up. We're going to come into a tabletop. So if you're on the ground, it's going to be just come into hands and knees. And if you're in your chair, we're going to come up to standing. So either like this, or if you're in your chair, you can stand in front of the seat of your chair and come into a tabletop position like this. You're welcome also to hold on to the back of your chair if that feels more comfortable for you. Really just pick a position that works. And once you've found your tabletop, take a moment to Breathe easy. And we're going to start to move with our breath again through cat and cow. So as you inhale, arch your back, coming into your cow pose. And as you exhale, round your back, finding your cat pose. And just go back and forth a few times. Follow your breath, follow your own rhythm, whatever you choose. And then come on back to a more neutral spine. Lovely. Okay. And now we'll do a little bit of bird dog. So for this one, we're just going to lift opposite hand and knee up off the ground. If you're already feeling it in your wrists, one thing you can do instead is to have hands on blocks. Sometimes that changing the angle a bit helps out. Another option you have is to do this on your forearms and do just the leg portion of our bird dog, sorry. So grab props if you'd like. And I'm going to show you this on the ground first and then up in the chair. So if you're on the ground, just lift one hand and the opposite knee just a little bit off the ground. And then reach them nice and long. And come on back to your tabletop. And if you're in the chair, same kind of thing. Definitely start with one leg lifting up, and you can, if you want, add the opposite hand lifting up, and then find your more lengthened position and come on back in. So totally up to you. Whether you're on the ground or in your chair, you can do just legs, or you can do just arms, or you can do both. Whatever you do, breathe nice and easy as you move. Notice if you're holding your breath. And let's come on back to our tabletop when you're ready. And take a moment here. You can stay in your tabletop, you can come up to standing, you can come up to sitting, just have a moment to move or stretch. Okay, and we're going to go through a series of movements now. So what I'm going to do is really quickly show you the floor version and the chair version, and then we're going to do it all together. So I'm going to kind of run through these series of movements just to give you a visual of what it looks like, and then we'll go through it a little slower, and I'll give you more cues about what to do in each of them. All right, so if we're on the ground, here's where we're headed. We are going to bring one leg back behind us like this and try some rotations in this leg. So similar to what we did with our arm, we're just going to rotate the leg just like this. And then we're going to set our toes down on the ground and reach back a little bit. And then we're going to bring this leg around to the side and get a bit of a stretch for the inside line of the leg. And then this leg is going to come all the way around to the front to find your lunge position. So here's where, if you've got some blocks, they can be really nice and handy for making those transitions a little bit more comfortable. And from here, we're going to come back to our tabletop, come up to a plank for a breath or two, come down to the ground, do a little bit of a back bend, back to our tabletop. I promise we won't go this fast. And then we'll be up to a downward facing dog. And that can be like this, or you can do a puppy pose with your knees on the ground and your arms reaching forward like this. And then we're going to do that whole thing over with the other leg. So in the chair, I'll show you really quickly what this looks like. So this time we're going to have the back of the chair facing towards us. Make sure that your chair is all the way on your mat so it's not going to slide around at all. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. One leg back, rotations in the leg. Set that foot down, get a bit of a stretch on the back leg, bring the leg around to the side, bit of stretch for the inside line of the leg. And then we're going to find our lunge just like this. Nice. And then we're going to come up to standing in front of our chair when the folks on the ground are doing their plank. And what we're going to do here is bring our hands around to the back of the pelvis like we were doing in our seated cat and cow, and add a little bit of that seated cow position just like this for our little back bend. We'll let that go, and downward facing dog with the chair looks like this. Hands on the back of the chair, step your feet back, and have a bit of a stretch here. And then again, all the way around for the other leg. Okay, so we're gonna do this all together. If you've got your chair, have the back of the chair facing towards you. If you're on your mat, come on down to your tabletop again. And if you know you like to use your blocks for the transitions between poses, then have them up close to your hands. Okay. So if you're at your chair, you can just be standing close to the back of your chair. Fingertips can be resting on your chair, but stand close to your chair so that you got lots of space to reach the other leg back. So let's start with the right leg. So if you're on the floor, you're just going to reach that right leg back. If you're standing in your chair, same thing, just more like this. Awesome. And now we're going to do our rotations. So think about moving from your upper leg bone again to rotate your leg in and out. Nice. A few more times. See if you can do this without your pelvis rocking along with the movement. Try to see how much rotation you have at your hip joint. And then we'll let it go. So set that foot down on the ground. Nice. If you are in tabletop, then reach your heel back behind you. See if you can find a little bit of stretch in that leg. If you are up here, then it's going to be more of an act of pressing your heel down towards the ground. See if you can find a stretch when you do that. All right, take a breath or two wherever you are. And then soften. And we're going to bring this leg around to the side. So step it around to the side. And if you're in your chair, bend your left knee, the knee that's closer to your chair. Awesome. And wherever you are, place the whole bottom of your foot on the ground. And imagine pressing your foot down into the ground. And keep that action of pressing down as you also pull up from your ankle up to your hip. See if you can find a bit of stretch. I know it's a lot of little bits and pieces at the same time. Breathe here. And then soften. Step that leg forward and come into your lunge. If you're at your chair, it's going to look like this. If you're on the ground, it's going to look like this. Maybe you have your blocks under your hands if you're on the ground as well. Wherever you are, feel your front foot and either your back foot or your back knee on the ground. And imagine pressing them down into the ground and then hugging them towards each other at the same time. And if you want, you can lift up a little bit. If you're on the ground, you can bring your hands to your hips. You can lift one or both arms, whether you're on the ground or in your chair. And breathe. Can you keep your legs nice and active here as you hold this lunge? And let's let it go. Hands back to the back of your chair or the ground. And now if you're on the ground, come back to your tabletop. If you're at your chair, just step up to standing right behind your chair. And now we're going to come into our plank if we're on the ground. So with your hands roughly underneath your shoulders, step both feet back, find your plank. And you can be up here in a high plank or you can be down here in a low plank, whatever suits you. Nice. Take a breath or so here. And let's lower down. Knees, belly, chest, all the way down to the ground. Just take a moment here, breathe. And while you take a breather, if you're in the chair, let's set up for our little back bend. So bring your hands onto your low back, maybe finding those bones of your pelvis. All right, and if you're on the ground, place your hands on the ground by the sides of your chest. Nice. And let's all roll our shoulders up and back. Nice. Once you've got that lengthen through your spine, lift your head, lift your gaze, open your chest a little bit here. Take a breath wherever you are. And then let it go. Come on back to standing in a neutral stance or resting on the ground any way you'd like. If you're on your belly, a nice thing I like to do after a back bend is just to rock the hips side to side a couple of times. All right. And if you are on your belly, take a moment to come back up to your tabletop. Okay. And one more piece before we go over to the other leg. Let's try a downward facing dog. So if you're on the ground, option one is to keep your knees where they are and step your hands forward for puppy pose like this. Option two is to walk your hands a little bit wider apart in your tabletop. Add a little bit of external rotation to your arms. Press your fingers, press your palms down into the ground. Walk your knees back a touch. Tuck your toes under and lift your hips up and back. Find your down dog shape. And of course, if you're at your chair, hands to the chair, feet walk back, find this shape. So spending a few breaths with your down dog, whatever it looks like. If your legs are straight right now, you can bend one knee and press the other heel down into the ground. And just flip side to side doing that. And when you've had enough down dog, come back to a resting position. On the ground, you can try child's pose. If you're in your chair, you can just come back up to standing, or you can sit in your chair, wherever you'd like to be. Nice, breathe easy wherever you are. Maybe take a moment to notice how you feel here. Okay, and when you're ready, let's meet back in either your tabletop if you're on the ground, or just standing right behind your chair if you're using your chair. All right, how's everyone doing? Yeah, awesome. Okay, let's do all that on the other leg. So we'll reach the left leg back, do a few rotations here. See if you can have some awareness of what's going on in your pelvis, if it's wanting to rock along with the rotation, or if you can isolate this to just a movement of your leg. And then step that leg back, toes to the ground. Nice, reach your heel back behind you if you're in tabletop, or press your heel down towards the ground if you're standing. See if you can find a bit of stretch here, see where you notice it. When you're ready, bring that leg around to the side. Plant your whole foot on the ground. If you find that your knee wants to bend when you do this, then adjust the position of your leg any way you need to so that your leg can be a little bit more straight. And if you're in standing, the other leg, the right leg this time, will have a little bit of a bend in it. So you can kind of lean away from the foot that is planted on the ground. Nice, so foot pressing down. Can you add that action of reaching from your ankle up to your hip at the same time? What happens in your leg when you do that? Do you feel a bit of stretch? Do you feel a bit of engagement? All right, when you're ready, let's take it all the way around to our lunge. Nice, take a few steps if you're in standing to find your lunge shape. And let's bring some engagement to our legs, pressing front foot down, pressing back foot or knee down, hugging them towards each other. Maybe you want to come up a little bit more upright if you're on the floor. Maybe you'd like to add a different arm position, totally up to you. Breathe easy wherever you are. All right, let's let this go. Bring your hands back down. Come up to standing behind your chair or make your way back to your tabletop. Lovely. Take a moment. You can move or stretch. You can find a resting position, whether it's just sitting or standing or child's pose. Okay, let's meet back up in sitting or standing. Okay. So before we move on, just take a moment, tune in. Maybe noticing how your breath feels. All right, and we're all going to come up to standing when you're ready. And if you've got a harder block, like a cork block or a wooden block, or a heavy book, if you've got it at home, then you can have that nearby. And everything else can be out of the way. So make your way up to standing when you're ready. You can stand near your chair, you can stand near a wall, or you can be right in the middle of your mat if your balance feels great today. We're going to start with small movements and work our way up to some bigger ones. But for now, just you can set the block down, just within reach. Just stand easy, relax your arms by your sides, breathe. And just bring your attention right down to your feet. Just notice the contact between your feet and the ground. Notice if your weight feels like it's evenly distributed on both feet. And now we're going to change it up. So shift your weight over to your right foot and just lift the left off the ground a little bit. Just find your balance here. You can focus your eyes on a spot on the ground in front of you. You can even bring all your fingertips together. I find for some reason this tends to help with balance. And then set your foot back down on the ground with control. Let's do the other side. Just getting used to all the little wiggles and wobbles that come with balance. And then let it go. Come on back down, 2 feet down to the ground. Lovely. All right, shift back over to the first leg. Lift the other foot up off the ground just a touch. And we're going to do some rotations here in standing. Nice. I like to have my hands on my hip bones here. Just get a little bit of feedback about whether the pelvis wants to help out with this movement. Breathe easy. Let's switch sides. Let it go. Come on back to both feet. Just take a moment feeling both feet on the ground again. Okay, we're going to shift our weight back over to the first leg. And this time, all we're going to do is try to press down through this leg. Imagine pressing down along the outside line of your leg so much that the other foot might lift off the ground. And I don't want you to actually lift this foot deliberately. I want you to focus on pressing down in the standing leg. See if there's a bit of a lift that happens with the other one. And it might be tiny, that's fine. Try it on the other side. Pressing down through the standing leg. Maybe the other one lifts a touch. Let's go side to side a couple of times. Lovely. All right, come on back down. Both feet on the ground. Give everything a bit of a shake. Nice. Okay, and now we're going to add the block if you'd like. You can do things exactly like we just did if you'd like, but if you want to add the block, you can bring that into play. Just make sure when you stand on the block that you've got a big enough block or book to support your foot. So if you find that you don't fit your whole foot on the block, then grab another one so that you can have them making enough of a surface to stand on comfortably. All right. So coming back to the first leg, just stand up onto the block or just stand right on the ground if you prefer. Have some balance support nearby if you'd like. Awesome. And the other foot, the toes can be on the ground to start with. And when you're ready, just flex your foot so you're kind of making both feet level with each other as best as you can. Nice. All right, just finding your balance here. Maybe you want to bring all your fingertips together again if you'd like. Let's just do a few rotations here. Rotate that floating leg. Nice. Bring it back to neutral. Let's do our pressing on the standing leg. Imagine pressing down on the outside line of your leg. See if the other foot can lift. And then as you lower it down, you can let your foot lower down a little past the line of the block and try that. Press down and release. Can you keep your balance the whole time here? It's funny how different it is when you add this element of the block. Maybe notice what muscles are waking up when you do this. All right, right back down to the ground when you're ready. Give it a bit of a wiggle. Nice. Take a moment, both feet on the floor. Just appreciate that feeling of nice, stable, solid ground. Okay, let's do that all on the other foot. And again, you can do all of this just like we did in the beginning with your feet flat on the ground, or you can add that block just to add a little bit of a different element. So when you're ready, make your feet kind of level with each other, find your balance here. Maybe you'd like to find a spot to focus your eyes on or bring your fingertips together and start with your rotations in the floating leg. Awesome. Let's let that one go. Press down through the standing leg. Do a bit of this lifting and lowering action. See if it feels different on this side than the first side. Balance is often better on one side than the other. Don't be surprised if that's what you find. Nice, let's let it go. Come on back down. Give everything a bit of a shake. Awesome. Come on back to stillness for a breath. Relax your shoulders. Feel contact between your feet and the ground. Okay, let's try another balancing pose. So we're going to play around with Warrior 3 pose today. And I'll just briefly show you what it looks like. So it's just one of our lovely one leg standing poses or one leg balance poses. We're going to bring our weight into one foot, hinge at the hips, and come into a shape, kind of like this. And you can bring your arms into it if you'd like, out in kind of an airplane shape or up overhead. And if you're using your chair, then it's going to look like this. Hands to the chair, same thing. And what we're going to focus on is bringing that bit of engagement to the leg, having that a bit of that element of pressing down into the standing leg, but not so much that the other hip lifts. So just a touch of that action of pressing down through the standing leg. Before we go into it, we're going to try a half forward fold to connect with the sense of hinging at our hips when we go into this pose. So standing on both feet, bring your hands to where your hip creases tend to be. And with a bit of softness in your knees, just hinge at your hips and fold forward. Nice. Come on back up. See if you can keep your spine fairly neutral as you go. So if you find that you're rounding in your spine, then just make this movement a bit smaller. See how much you can fold forward without needing your spine to round at all. So try it a couple times, just get used to that feeling. Because we're going to do basically the same thing on just one leg in a moment. So come on back up to standing. In addition to pressing down in your standing leg, I'm going to give you another piece to think about. And that is keeping your hips fairly level. So when you go into your Warrior 3, check that you're not doing this and kind of opening your hips up to the side. It is a heck of a lot more steady if you can try to keep your hips fairly level. I always like to think about having headlights on my hip bones and trying to point them in the same direction rather than having one go off to the side. So it's a lot of little pieces to keep in mind, but we'll try it all together. So You can be standing right in the middle of your mat. You can be standing with one hand at the wall. You can be standing with both hands at your chair. Totally up to you. But bring your hands onto your hips, well, one or both. Shift your weight over into the right leg to start with. Just lighten the contact between your left foot and the ground and bring some engagement to the right leg. Not so much so the other hip wants to hike right up, just a touch. Nice. Once you've got that, hinge at your hips, fold forward a bit. Doesn't have to be a ton. Find your warrior 3 and then come right back up. Nice. Okay, we're going to try it a few more times, kind of going into and out of warrior 3 at your own pace. So breathe easy as you go. Try not to hold your breath if you can. Try to allow your rhythm of breath to stay fairly soft. And just try this out. Nice. Keeping a little bit of engagement in that standing leg as if you're pressing down from your hip down to the ground. Trying to keep your hips level as best as you can. Whether you're going really far into your pose or not, doesn't matter. See if you can keep your headlights pointing in the same direction. Come on back up. When you're ready, stand easy. Nice, shake it out. And again, take a moment of stillness, a moment just to pause. You might notice how your hips and your legs feel. If there's a bit of asymmetry there after doing just one side. Okay, so let's even ourselves out and do the other side. Same thing, set up how you wish. Have at least one hand on your hip so you can get a sense for what's going on there. Bring some engagement to the standing leg, float the other foot, and find your warrior 3. Try this one a few times. Take your own pace. If you want to come into your warrior pose and just stay here balancing for a couple of breaths, please do so. Okay, let's let this one go. When you're ready, you might want to do a couple more. You might be ready to let it go. It's up to you. Okay, so we're going to try it again, and I'm going to give you another option to make it a little more tricky. Actually, I'm going to give you 2 options. Option 1 is just do exactly the same thing. I've got a few options for you, actually. Option 1, same thing, down and up a few times. Another option is to come into that pose and hold it for a breath or 2. Another option, if you're really brave, is to come into your warrior 3, come back up, and don't touch this foot down to the ground before you go into the other one. That one is really tough. So if you'd like, you can try it. It will really challenge the standing leg. If you are doing your warrior 3 and you're coming fairly far into it, if you want, you can play around with your block. This one's kind of fun. Well, maybe fun, maybe not, maybe I'm crazy. But what you can do is come into your warrior 3, grab that block, and then when you go back into your warrior 3, put it down in a different spot so that you're doing your up and down in your warrior 3, but you're challenging yourself to grab the block and come back up. But if you're going into your warrior 3 and you're kind of up here, then don't bother with trying to go all the way down to the ground. So you can have all your stuff nearby if you'd like to try it. And your mat is your playground. So we'll try this, do a little bit on each side, and just see what seems interesting to you. And again, can you breathe easy, even as you balance? Sometimes the 2 don't like to go together, but experiment, maybe pause for a moment, reconnect with your breath. See if you can stay connected with it as you move. All right, and if you haven't switched over to the other leg, you can do that. Maybe another one or two if you'd like. Whenever you kind of feel even from one side to the other. Come on back up to standing when you're ready. Nice. Take a moment, maybe you want a little bit of a wiggle. Maybe there's some kind of movement you'd like here. Make your way back to stillness when you're ready. And just take a couple of easy breaths. All right. And we are ready to bring things down closer to the ground. So we're going to come down to laying on our back, if that's comfortable for you. If you would prefer to stay seated in a chair, you can. But we will come to either laying down or seated in your chair. And we're going to do a few movements and then move into our resting pose. So if there's anything you'd like to have nearby for your resting pose, you can bring it within arm's reach, like blankets or pillows or socks or sweaters. Of course. All right. And as you breathe here, just feel the contact between the back of your body and the ground, or your seat in your chair. And then if you're on your back, you can bring both knees in towards your chest. Give yourself a little hug and maybe have a bit of a rock from side to side. If you're in your chair, you can do this just one knee at a time, just giving yourself a little hug. And come on back to center. Keep your knees in. Bring your hands to rest on your knees and bring your big toes to touch. And now we're just going to do some hip circles here. So move your knees out to the sides, away from each other, and then circle them out away from you and back together and back in. And try those circles a few times. See if you can keep your big toes touching the whole way through. And if you like, you can do those circles in the opposite direction a couple of times. And then let it go. Bring your feet back down. And bring your arms out into a T position. And we'll do a few snow angel arms here. So if there's props around your arms or around your head that you want to move out of the way, you can do that. So with your arms in the T position, turn your palms to face up towards the ceiling if that's comfortable. If you're seated in your chair, this can just be bringing your arms out by your sides like this. And then trace your hands up overhead. And if you're on the ground, if your fingers don't want to stay on the ground, if it feels more comfortable to lift them up away from the ground, then please do that. And try a few nice big snow angels. And let it go. Let your arms come back to rest. Okay, if there's any other stretch or movement you'd like before we head into our resting pose, you can take that now. And then take a moment to get yourself set up. Just find a position that feels comfortable for you. If you're on your back, you don't have to stay on your back. You're welcome to lay on your side or your belly, or if you come up to a seat. And if you're seated in your chair, try to sit in a way that you can rest your back on the back of the chair. So sometimes I like to bring a pillow under my feet so that I can sit back a little farther and still have my feet on the chair. Do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable. And while you do that, I'll turn the lights down here in the room. So check in with yourself. Notice if there's any adjustments you can make to feel a little bit more settled and comfortable. And when you're ready, bring your attention back to your breath. You might like to take a few deeper breaths here. And if you liked our belly breaths from the start of the class, you can come back to that picture of inhaling all the way down to your low belly. And again, notice which parts of you are in contact with the ground or your chair. You might like to invite a sense of heaviness throughout your body. Just allowing the weight of your body to be supported by whatever it is that you're sitting or lying on. And as you breathe, you might feel a little bit more of a sense of settling or heaviness with each exhale. And we'll stay here resting for a few more minutes.